Hello and welcome to this short presentation on planning activities, specifically in terms of what goes into a plan and with a very strong focus on the introduction of an activity, the main steps of an activity, and how to conclude an activity. So that's what we'll be focusing on in this mini presentation that will just take you through a mere 22 slides. So, and I'm Sammy, I'll be walking you through this presentation. So the first thing that you need to think about is whether it's an adult initiated, an adult led, or a child initiated activity. And that should be documented on the activity plan because obviously that will have a huge impact on the way that the activity is planned and ultimately delivered and carried out. And the activity mode, what mode is the activity? Is it open-ended? Can the children flow in and flow out from the activities? Or is it set time? The activity has a beginning, a middle, and an end, where the whole group, whether it's a small group or a large group, do the activity at the same time, at the same pace. So the activity mode, that should also be recorded on your activity plan. Okay, so what we're going to think now is what should be included on an activity plan, and we're going to specifically look at these three elements: the introduction, how the activity is introduced, the main activity or main steps within an activity, and a conclusion, bringing the activity to a close or an end. And think about an activity, an adult-led activity, as a small chunk of teaching time, whether that is with very small or young children or with children at the older end of the early years spectrum, 4 or 5 years old, for example. What we're talking about here is applicable to the whole of the early years age phase. So let's jump in and start off by thinking about what an introduction to an activity is and what it should look like. In fact, we're going to do the opposite. What an introduction is it's a discrete section of the planned activity that introduces the idea, the topic, the theme, the materials, and it is an activity within itself. It could be a song, it could be a story, it could be some kind of a demonstration, an explanation, a let's have a go at it. As I said with the cooking activity, guessing the ingredients based on doing taste tests and getting them out and things like that, going through how to read or how to follow a pictorial a guide of a recipe card, something of that nature where there is interaction and a separate part of the activity that is gathered together as the introduction. Okay, so let's just think about this. If my activity is an open-ended activity, so that's a flow in, flow out, children can flow in and flow out, and the activity is painting with things that roll. Take a minute and can you think of an idea of how you could introduce this activity? Pause the video for a second and write down your own idea of how you think you could introduce that activity with children. Painting with things that roll. Okay, welcome back. Hopefully you've come up with some great ideas. I'm going to share my idea with you. I've gathered together here a basket of different things. Some things roll and some things don't roll. And bear in mind, it's a flow in, flow out activity. So different children will be coming to join my painting table when I'm doing painting with things that roll at different times. I might have 2 children come at one point. I might have already 5 children at the table and 1 more child comes. So my introduction, I need to be able to do ad hoc each time a child comes. So my introduction is based in this basket, asking the children, can you see what rolls from this? What could you choose from here? Does this one roll? Oh no, it doesn't. It's the wrong shape to roll. Which of these things do you think can roll? Okay, now choosing the thing that they would like to paint with. That's my introduction to the activity. We've had a discussion, we've done some sorting and categorizing, what rolls, what doesn't. As we're doing that, I'm explaining the activity that we're going to be doing. All those elements together make a great and secure introduction. Now we're going to move on to the main steps of the activity. This is the juicy part. What's actually going to happen? How's it going to look? What are the different approaches, stages in the activity? So if you're writing up an activity plan for the main part of the activity, you will want to be creating a list with timings of the different steps or stages in the activity. You will want to list each step or stage separately with a clear instruction or description of what happens in that stage, what the adult does and what the child does. And you will also want to present the steps or stages in a logical sequential order. First this, then this, then this, then we're done. Okay, so now what we'd like to do, let's come back to my painting activity with things that roll. We've looked at the basket, we've done the introduction, the child's chosen something that they want to use for their painting that rolls. What would the main steps or main section of the activity look like? Put the video on pause one more time and just take a few minutes to jot down your activity plan, the main steps or the main point of the activity plan. What would that look like? And welcome back. I'm sure you've got some great ideas there. Let's have a look at mine. So The first thing that I've said, I've split it up into 5 stages. The first thing that I've said is that each child that comes to the table, once they've chosen, done the introduction, they will choose what colour they want to paint with, and they will place the paint in a tray, in a long tray. My second step, they will take the paper independently with adult support if required and roll it out the length of the table and the ramp that I've attached at the end of the table. The ramp is obviously for things to flow down. So they're going to have a long piece of paper that they put out independently. They can then try pushing the thing that they've chosen to paint with through the paint and roll it down. That's the next stage. And then each time they do that, they can try pushing it harder, softer, etc., to see if it makes different kinds of marks on the paper. When the paper's full, if they want to keep painting, then they detach it and they can add a clean piece of paper. Obviously, they can do that as many times as they want. So that would be my main steps of what would happen in that flow in, flow out activity. Let's move on and have a think about how to conclude an activity. So thinking about the conclusion, what would be in a conclusion and what would a conclusion look like? So once again, we're going to think about what a conclusion is not. A conclusion is not saying, well done everyone, clap, clap your hands, everyone give everyone a big clap. That's not a conclusion. Okay, we're finished now, everyone tidy up, put everything away. That is not a conclusion. Absolutely, tidying up should be part of the activity. It should happen when the teaching is finished. There can be a tidy up sequence that's part of the conclusion, but just saying to children, tidy up now, we're finished, that is not a conclusion. Okay, or dismissing the activity and sending them to the next activity or the next part of the day. Okay, well done for taking part in cooking, boys and girls. Off you go to your next activity now. That is not a conclusion. It is not a conclusion. Many, many times I've read students' activity plans, and the introduction will say, everyone come and sit on the carpet. Then it will have the main activity, and then it will say, okay, everyone, give yourselves a big clap, and off you go to the next activity. That's not a conclusion. That might be how you support a transition to the next activity, but it's not concluding the teaching and learning that has happened and taken place within that adult-led or adult-initiated activity. Here's what a conclusion is. It's a discrete and separate learning task within your activity. You'll be revisiting in your conclusion, revisiting and reinforcing the main learning points that you set out to achieve. The conclusion will be a way of rounding off, finishing up the activity. You could use a song, a story, a show and tell. It could be anything, but it's a discrete and meaningful part of the activity that pulls the learning and the experience together. So let's think one more time about my painting activity with things that roll. Can you consider how you would conclude that activity? What would you do as part of the conclusion? So one more time, take a minute to pause the video and jot down in your jotting book your ideas for concluding the video. So welcome back. I'm sure you've got a lot of great ideas. I'm going to share with you mine. So as part of the conclusion, they're going to wash whatever it was that they used, whether it was a ball, whether it was a car, whatever it was that rolled. They're going to wash it in the sink and wash the paint off it. And then I would ask a question like this. Now you've washed the ball, let's put it back. And then I would reinforce my teaching aim of what roles. What else could you have used that rolls? Does this one roll? Does that one roll? And by washing the resources that we've used, by asking those questions, by revisiting the categorization, that's a way of me pulling that activity to a close and drawing that activity for that child to an end. Because remember, this is a flow in, flow out. So I will be doing that 1-to-1 or 2 at a time with children as they come to a natural end of their flow in, flow out activity. Okay, so just moving on and thinking what should be included, what else should be included in an activity plan. And all I'm going to do now is just remind you of those categories that should be included. So obviously the name of the activity, the type of activity that it is, the format of the activity. We already said that at the beginning, whether it's child initiated, adult initiated, or adult led. The mode of the activity, whether it's set time or flow in, flow out, the age group that it's for, linked to a developmental milestone, absolutely. You've got to have your learning intentions in there, what preparation is needed for the activity, the resources that are required for the activity. So for example, if I was writing an activity plan for my things that roll, one of the resources that I would list would be everything that needed to be in that basket, the things that rolled and the things that didn't roll. On my activity plan, I'd have the beginning, which is the introduction, the middle, which is the main sections, and the conclusion. All of those things would be in my activity plan. I would highlight key vocabulary that I wanted to use, and I definitely identify opportunities to differentiate how I can simplify and provide support for the children that are struggling or that need extra help, and how I could extend and challenge those children who have got it and need to be stretched that little bit more. Those are the things, and I would also comment on the adult's role as well. Those are the things that I would be expecting to see in any activity plan that is created in an early years setting. And all that's left is for me to say thank you for listening, and I hope you've got something out of the video.